investigated the attempted assassination of Trump. Burke is good friends with Justice Brett Kavanaugh, a clerk to Justice Anthony Kennedy, special counsel in the George W. Bush White House, Republican guy, and a director at Fox. I just think that Fox connection is important there. Then on the morning shows as well, Tom Homan, Donald Trump's border czar, I put that in quotes as well, was asked by Fox, hey, when Donald Trump said in that hot mic moment that he wants to put American citizens in gulags, he wants to put the homegrowns, as Trump said, in El Salvador concentration camps or extermination camps, what did he mean by that? Even Fox is saying, what did he mean by that? Watch this.
Can you describe who would fall into that category and what the president was referring to there, Tom?
Martha, I don't know. I haven't had that discussion with the president. I've been on the road. I just got home like an hour ago, so I haven't had a discussion with the president or the DHS secretary, so I'm going to have to pass on that question.
Okay, that's fine. It sort of came out of nowhere, the question, so I wondered if you knew something that we didn't know.
Yeah, and of course, Homan didn't have a good answer. As our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, posts this photo that the El Salvador authoritarian president, Nayib Bukele, posted. Friends, our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, wrote, so we traded Europe and Canada for a guy that builds concentration camps for profit and whose GDP in El Salvador is 34 billion, 25% poverty rate, 10% of people in El Salvador live in extreme poverty. Again, Fox presses Tom Homan here about, so is Trump really not going to follow the Supreme Court order saying facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia? Watch this.
Well, I think Pam Bondi's right. He's a El Salvadorian national, born in El Salvador. He's in El Salvador's custody. So El Salvador would have to agree to release him. It doesn't sound like they're going to. And if we did get him back in the United States, he's going to be detained. He's an MS-13 gang member based on our intelligence and El Salvador's intelligence. So he's been designated terrorist, so he's going to be locked up regardless. So I agree with Pam Bondi. I think, we can facilitate return if El Salvador wants to send him back, but I don't think Bukele's going to do that at all.
Yeah.
By the way, even Fox was off with their panel from the Five, with Jeanine Pirro and the whole right-wing crew there. Even like what she was saying, you can tell she was off. Like there was just something different. It hit different yesterday. Jeanine Pirro was like, yeah, like when Bernie Sanders went in front of Coachella, he's politicizing a music event. He's politicizing a music event. Sorry. That's my Jeanine Pirro impression. Here, play this clip.
And he's trying to preach to them about how bad it is. He's talking about climate change, racism, capitalism. He's politicizing a music event. If they weren't so stoned, they would have booed him out.
They never really chant USA at Bernie rallies, do they? Can you imagine the president
politicizing? What are you even talking about? Donald Trump was at the UFC fight, and Donald Trump was pretending everybody was waving to him. It's a much smaller crowd, may I add. Oh, then you have Elise Stefanik, or as our editor-in-chief Ron Filipkowski says, with the Mar-a-Lago makeover. Here's Elise Stefanik, who got kicked out of her role where she was going to be appointed as ambassador to the United Nations. Here she attacks higher education in the United States. Here, play this clip.
There is so much opportunity across this country for the next generation, whether it's in the workforce, whether it's in this manufacturing renaissance that is going to happen under President Donald J. Trump, whether it's community colleges or trade schools, vocational programs. That is a pathway to success. Higher education has fundamentally lost its way, and it's increasingly out of touch, and the tuition rates go higher and higher. So we need to defund across the board, and President Trump is rightly holding these schools accountable.
All right, Congresswoman, great job as always. We do appreciate.
And then watch this moment right here where Stephen Miller goes after the Fox host here and says, I got to correct you. You're mistaken on everything, when he's not. And Stephen Miller was spewing this line that the Trump regime was just saying. They claimed they won 9-0 by the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court ordered 9-0 the opposite. The Supreme Court ordered 9-0, facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia and go through due process as though you hadn't removed him in the first place. That was the 9-0 decision. Not you can keep him in El Salvador and act as a dictator and say oopsies. But the Trump regime is lying, and they're saying the Supreme Court ruling said something different. Just watch what goes down here, though, when Miller loses his temper on the Fox host. Here, play this clip.
Your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case. Clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So he appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we won the case handily. The misreporting on this has been atrocious.
Okay,
Secondly,
I appreciate
he was
the
not, no, Bill's
clarification,
important.
that's the case.
He was not mistakenly sent to El Salvador.
Okay, so do you still
He's an
believe
illegal
he is a
alien
member of
from
MS?
El Salvador.
And then you have Kristi Noem, Donald Trump's Homeland Security Secretary, when she was pushed by Fox and Friends about Trump's violation of the Supreme Court order saying facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. She's like, now the district court, now the federal judge wants daily updates. That's mean. What? We're going to waste our time doing daily updates? Play this clip.
We need to stop doing this, stop allowing liberal judges to try to dictate what President Trump is doing to make America safe again. So I'm grateful for the Supreme Court's decision, and I'm hopeful that we can have a new path forward where the president and his powers are recognized.
This judge has said that he wants daily updates.
Yeah.
I mean, shouldn't we be focused on the updates of the American people on the day-to-day that are being victimized by these criminal aliens?
Absolutely. That's what we get up every single day to make sure that we are doing, Lawrence. It's amazing what President Trump has already done by closing down the border, making sure we're enforcing our federal laws, doing all we can to identify those that are in this country that don't belong here, that are committing crimes. And we're continuing to enact policies that will give us the chance to do that.
Now, let me just show you two final data points here. First, let me show you Ray Dalio, billionaire hedge fund guy, founder of Bridgewater Associates. This is a guy, this is from Meet the Press this weekend, but this is what got the Fox hosts and Murdoch freaked out, is that you've got Ray Dalio who predicted the Great Recession. This guy, say what you want about his politics or whatever, but he knows his business stuff. Here's what he's got to say. Play this clip.
I think that right now we are at a decision-making point and very close to a recession. And I'm worried about something worse than a recession if this isn't handled well. A recession is 2 negative quarters of GDP, and whether it goes slightly there, we always have those things. We have something that's much more profound. We have a breaking down of the monetary order. We are going to change the monetary order because we cannot spend the amounts of money. So we have that problem. And when we talk about the dollar and we talk about tariffs, we have that. We are having profound changes in our domestic order, how ruling is existing. And we're having profound changes in the world order. Such times are very much like the 1930s. I've studied history, and this repeats over and over again. So if you take tariffs, if you take debt, if you take the rising power challenging the existing power, if you take those factors and look at the factors, those changes in the orders, the systems are very, very disruptive. How that's handled could produce something that is much worse than a recession.
And then even you've got people like MAGA Republican Senator Kennedy, as MAGA as you get. He's now going on CNN to criticize the Trump regime because how dangerous they are. You've got MAGA Republican Senator Kennedy on CNN. Here, watch this.
Here's what I see. I see